Press freedoms in Ukraine's Crimea peninsula have plummeted since Russian forces took over in February 2014. Now the de facto authorities are clamping down on Crimean Tatar media and independent journalists. So what is the latest situation and what exactly can be done about it? Joining us on Ukraine Today is Oleksandra Matviychuk, a Ukrainian activist and representative of the Center for Civil Liberties. Oleksandra, thank you very much for coming in to Ukraine Today.
Hello.
So please tell us now what your work is about to inform people in Crimea about what's really going on.
Mm-hmm. After occupation, this huge violation of international law resulted in numerous violations of human rights. More than 20 people were in forced disappearances, and 3 of them were killed, and the whereabouts of 9 is still unknown. All Ukrainian TV channels and Crimea TV channels were closed and disappeared into air. The peaceful assemblies are banned, even if their culture or some ethnic, they are prohibited.
So it's not just the media then,
yes,
it's a broad range of pro-Ukrainian or anything that opposes the regime?
To celebrate the anniversary of Ukrainian poet or to celebrate the Crimean Tatar flag day, it's all prohibited in peninsula. And another dangerous trend is political persecutions in peninsula, which have a big audience as a target, is journalists, human rights defenders, activists, ordinary people who express their alternative point of view. And a lot of human rights defenders and journalists had to leave peninsula.
And they fled in terror. No, they feared for their lives if they wrote anything that was against the Kremlin's line.
Yes, because of real threats of their lives and freedoms. Because now in peninsula situation, if you are not a human rights defender or activist, but you have alternative point of view, you can be a victim. And last week we had bright examples when the court hearings against one of leader of Crimean Tatar was conducted. It's Akhtem Chigos. He was prosecuted on fabricated cases of 28 February because he was involved in peaceful assemblies against occupation.
Yes, yeah.
And one local bloggers who want only to see what's going on in the court, he was arrested, he was stopped, and he was prohibited to fulfill his professional work.
But that was because he wasn't actually registered with the Russian watchdog that's in charge of the media. That's why he wasn't allowed in the court. Am I right?
He told that police told him that he provided extremist moves, and when he asked what extremist moves I provided, he was told that you make photos. So to make photos in public hearings, in hall of the court, it's extremism, according to Russians.
So this is just the reason that's used. It's like a label that's given to anybody who is against this regime. I wanted to ask you, Oleksandra, about what Ukraine is doing to get round this, because it's clear that the Russian laws are not going to change. It doesn't matter how much lobbying Ukraine and the activists try to do. So what sort of methods do you think activists can use to actually inform people in Crimea about what's going on? Social media, is that an option?
Social media is an option, but the first step is to monitor and to understand what's going on in Crimea, because now people live in fear. It's a real peninsula of fear, and it's very hard to know about human rights violation which going on in villages or against ordinary people, because people keep silence. They received clear messages, or you keep silence, or you have to go away from Crimea, or you will be punished very severely. And one of the methods which we use how to help people who live with this frame of occupation is to try to protect prisoners for political motives. And now we have 8 people in peninsula prisons who incriminated, fabricated criminal cases.
So what can Ukraine do about this to inform audiences in the States, in Europe, about these political prisoners?
the activists of our campaign, which is called Let My People Go, use any informational platform and use every informational platform and every international human rights meetings to tell about the cases of these people. And because it's very important to do our best to release them, but of course it's very important to put the public attention to these cases. It can be some guarantees for them that they will not be tortured or another punishment in the prisons will not be conducted. So today we will present our reports, which is called 28 hostages of Putin, and the 8 persons of them are now in Crimea. But if we speak the general number, a lot of people who were arrested in Crimea according to political motives, after court hearings, they were transmitted into Russia. For example, Alexander Kostenko, Oleg Sentsov, and Gennady
And these are the high
Afanasyev.
profile, and you have Nadia Savchenko also. I mean, this was part of the Minsk peace deal that was signed in February last year, that there should be an exchange of prisoners. And these are just the high profile ones. There's a lot more out there. I wanted to ask you, what's your expectations?
We don't expect any law decision in this case because Russia is an authoritarian country, and we closely work with our colleague from Russia, Russian human rights defenders, and they told that there is a very dangerous trend that they observe in Peninsula. If in general in Russia this repressive legislation and repressive tool instrument in practice used selectively against some concrete people or some concrete events, in Russia, in Crimea, the self-proclaimed power use all of them totally against any alternative point of view.
Because it was an invasion, so they took it to extra lengths. In Russia, you have this media clampdown, but it wasn't as bad as in Crimea.
But there is another conclusion which we observe, that of course they have to liquidate any alternative point of view and to show the world that Crimea is willing to join to Russia or something like this. So to be in the trends of Russian propaganda campaign. But they use these totalitarian methods because they try to train how to behave when the peaceful assemblies or peaceful movement started in regions of Russia. So they use this Crimea as a polygon for totalitarian practice.
I see. So there's a fear that if there was some opposition to the self-styled regime that's in Crimea now, then that could actually spread to other regions of Russia. And this has always been a fear of Russia for decades.
Maybe not spread, but if something appeared in Russia the same, not because resulted of Crimea, but because people in Russia are not also satisfied of their lives, and we don't know what will be in 1 year or after 2 years. They have methods which they trained into this Crimean Peninsula.
I see. And I have one last question for you, Oleksandra. Now, how big a problem are these human rights violations? Recently, for example, in the Guardian newspaper that's published in England, there was an article that said that people in Crimea were actually happy. Do you think that people actually said this because they feared of any repercussions? No, from your research and from the partners that you work with at your organisation, what's the trend?
It's try to be happy when you not control your life. It's very hard to be happy if everybody can beat you and police can beat you and you have any chance to protect yourself in law enforcement bodies on you have no chance for fair court trials. I know this sentence. It were some French parliamentarians who came to Crimea, and when they returned, they told the weather is good, people are happy, but it's only the top of iceberg when they can observe. They are not interested about political persecution in Crimea, about people who were dismissed of their work because they don't want to have Russian passports, about people who are suffered because of different pressure for them because of their position. And you see, there is no happy when there is a lot of fears.
OK. Oleksandra, thank you very much for telling us more about your work, about human rights in Crimea. It's very interesting to talk to you.
Thanks.
That was Oleksandra Matviychuk. She's a Ukrainian activist and representative of the Centre for Civil Liberties. We've been talking about human rights repressions in Crimea. Now, back to the news.